Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. So, when David asked me to come and present, this was especially special because I actually started my career in Austin. So how many people live in Austin or close to Austin? Great. So I worked at Trilogy back in 2000, if that name rings a bell. I was youthful-ish, I guess, and I was really, really in love with .coms, and I joined Austin. Love Austin, by the way. Big fan of Austin. So this is the first time I'm back after 14 years. And I have to say, when I walked out with 70 degrees, maybe I might move back, right? So, but no, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit about myself. David introduced me, but I lead the Office 365 product management team. What that really means is I'm the team between the engineering teams that build the product and with customers and partners like yourselves. So I get to play two roles. One is giving feedback and requirements engineering, but also having the opportunity to talk with people like yourselves about what we're doing, listening to you, and this is a fantastic forum for that. Before 365, I was in the SharePoint world for, 9 years, I think. 9 years. And in some days, I have to remind myself, I'm still in SharePoint. I mean, in many ways, everything I do speaks of SharePoint. I'll talk a little bit about that from my personal perspective as well as what's happening in technology. So with that, what I'm going to do today is really give a view of Office 365. Now, keynotes are supposed to be different, and I know that not everyone here is ready for the cloud, but hopefully you get a little bit of sense of what we're thinking, what we're doing, a lot of demos. I'll give a lot of personal insight, so hopefully that's helpful for all of you. So the first thing I want to start with is where we are today. With Satya Nadella coming to Microsoft, I think he's been very clear from a CEO perspective that we're a cloud-first, mobile-first company. And I have to say that Office is living it and breathing it for the last 3 years. So every single piece of software that we design in Office is first cloud and first mobile. And I'll explain why we do that. But basically what that means is that as we ship, and we will continue shipping on-prem software, and we just announced that we will be shipping SharePoint 2016 at the second half of this year. So on-prem doesn't go away, but what it means is that if you're looking for innovation, if innovation is a priority for all of you, then cloud should be part of your strategy some way or the other. The innovation that we do in the cloud, some of it will make it to on-prem, but not necessarily all of it. And I think the canonical example, while we can't give you a laundry list just yet, the canonical example is Yammer. I mean, Yammer's going to stay in the cloud, but there are many beautiful ways to do hybrid. And that's something I'll touch around later, which is no one in this world or no one in this room is all into the cloud or all on-prem. We're all somewhere in the middle, but by having the strategic vision, you're able to know where we're going, that on-prem will stay and cloud will stay, and the worlds will continue living on. So with that, jumping into the cloud and what it means, the first principle of the cloud is that we will continuously deliver features and functionality. And there's small features we'll deliver based on feedback, and I'll show you an example of that, and there are going to be big things that we deliver. And the thing that we are super sensitive on is how that disrupts business. Because at the end of the day, in the past, people could go ahead and choose how change gets rolled out. In the world of Office 365, change is just happening. And in many ways, that's a reality of SaaS services, software as a service. But there are a lot of things that my team does to make sure that you guys have enough notification, enough communication, enough tools. And I'll share more information as we go on. The second pillar is something very, very unique to Microsoft, which is security is at the core foundation of everything we do at the data center level. I was actually talking to someone from Qatar just now, that where your data lives, what we do with your data, what are the rules of data transport, we're being very transparent on our trust center. Not only are we being transparent, but we have security at rest or encryption at rest, whether it's SharePoint data or Exchange data. We do security during transit or transport, and we're working more and more on security controls you have. So MDM is probably the biggest buzzword happening right now, and that buzzword has evolved to MAM, right? So mobile device management, mobile app management, whatever you call it, it's mobile management. And in the world of mobile devices, it's not just where your data stays at rest, and it's not just where how your data moves, but it's also what happens to your data once it goes on someone's devices. So at Microsoft, we're thinking about the entire life cycle, and I think that's relevant even if you're on-prem. Because even if you're on-prem, you have people that have devices, and they are going to take data on the devices, and you want to make sure that data gets secured, and those apps are secure. So I'll show you demos and talk about that as well. And the last one, which is the thing that is the most interesting to me, quite frankly, and which is why I can be here and get feedback, is we're able to take feedback and respond in a matter of months. So conversations I have here, we might be able to act on. Big data, given the amount of petabytes of data and the amount of usage we have, we're able to make tweaks to software very quickly. I like to use an example. In the mid-2000s, every time I talked to someone about SharePoint, the number one thing I would get is, Arpan, you have to have single item security, single item security. Do you guys remember that, everyone? Single item security. And it took us 3 years. Now, it didn't take us 3 years to develop. It took us 3 years because our ship cycle is every 3 years. In the world, if you go back, and if we were in the cloud and people said we need single item security, we'd have a way to deliver it faster. And I'm just picking one example, but that's an example that sticks in my mind. At every conversation, I would hear that. And it would hurt me that it would take a while for this to release, but now in my current job, we can release things much, much faster. And the last thing is change. Change management is extremely important. So as people get excited about innovation, everyone here will have businesses that get really excited about cloud. They're probably using Dropbox, and you're probably looking the other way, maybe not. They're probably using OneDrive, they're probably using Google Drive. And at the end of the day, businesses love features. We all love features, I love features. But as IT leaders, we also have responsibility. So we're trying to be as thoughtful as possible. And again, this is another place where we're differentiated because we have that history with enterprises. All right, so how many people here, because we're in Austin, how many people here hike? Raise your hand. How many people have hiked a mountain? Or small, big, hiked a mountain? Yeah? Okay, put your hands down. How many people have run marathons? Yeah, raise your hand. And everyone else is probably like me, as you can tell, I'm not really exercising right now. But what do you think? Yell it out. What do you think is harder to train for? Climbing a mountain or running a marathon? What's harder? I heard mountain. I heard marathon. The answer is they're both really hard. Extremely hard. Otherwise, I'd be doing both of them. But they're extremely hard. But they're very different. And the reason why this is an important analogy is hopefully it reflects on all of you and me. So I always tell my team, and one of the things I try to do as a leader at Microsoft is I try to get people to understand culturally that things are different. My day job is different. I used to spend 1.5 years talking to customers, 1.5 years talking to engineering. That world has changed. And what we're finding is that what used to be hiking mountains, which took a lot of strength, is becoming into marathon running, which takes a different kind of strength. And as human beings, we're all resistant to change because we've built muscles that are all about hiking. And now we have to build stamina. We have to build a different routine and workout. So this graphic, while it may not be a Keynote graphic, but I love this graphic, and I'll make this publicly available, tells a great story. This is a story of a hiker, which is where we all were with on-prem software, where the cycle went, you got the big roadmap, you got notification, and you had a few years to plan your upgrade. App compat testing, rolling out the servers, all the things we do. In some years, people would skip a version. So that hike would be even higher. But once you're done hiking, you're done. I mean, you're done for a while. And what the cloud is doing is it's changing the notion of this mountain to a marathon. Now, I'm making it look pretty, and I'm making it look like it's all sunny. But it's hard. And I'm an optimist. So the sun is because it's an optimist. But anyone who knows, everyone here has probably taken a physics course. You're doing the same work. It's just different. So when I talk to analysts and customers, and they're like, but Arpan, how do I do app compat? How do I do this? I said, you do it differently. And thinking differently is something that I'm telling, and it's something that Microsoft has changed the boat on. Having said all of this, we're trying to be as thoughtful and balanced as possible. But if anyone says cloud is easier or this is easier, it's just different. There's still a lot of work. Change velocity is faster, but the amount of change may be the same. Some will argue it's more, but depending on how you look at it, it's just different. But we do try to make it easier. So what have we delivered? We've delivered over 150 features in the last 12 to 18 months. 150 features. That's a lot of features. Now, the reality is not all the features will apply to everyone here, because if you're just a SharePoint person, I'm going to show you a slide that shows that. But what you're going to see is that there's been a lot of great innovation happening. Whether it's the Office Graph, whether it's Delve, whether it's OneDrive, we've done a lot in the last 2 to 3 years. And we're also being thoughtful in how you can bring it to your on-premises. Just a little personal story here. 2 years ago, when I talked to analysts, when I talked to customers, people said, Arpan, when will you have parity with 365 with on-prem? And I would say soon, we're almost there. And now the conversation's, whoa, when are you going to have parity with on-prem, with the cloud? And that conversation shifted. And it used to be Gartner and Forrester would say, well, I don't know if you guys are going to innovate so fast. And now they're saying, what controls are you giving? So the attitude and the conversation shifted from, are you innovating, to how do you help us manage innovation? So that's just a personal insight, and I'll share more and more of that as we move on. So here's a nice little SharePoint view of the things that have changed in the SharePoint workloads on 365. A lot of great innovation. You're going to see some demo today. My personal favorite, by the way, is the Office Graph. Delve is just one application that takes advantage of the Office Graph. But when I show you Delve, I'll also talk about some of the things we're thinking about in the future. All right. So you heard me say we're doing a lot, but you also heard me say that we're committed to giving you tools to manage this change. So if there's one takeaway that everyone in this audience has, is to really understand how we're communicating change. The first is my team runs a public roadmap. The URL is roadmap.office.com that tells you what's being released in Office 365 over the next few months. So gone are the days where you had to know someone who knew someone under NDA in a dark room. That's gone. It's all public. And that will help you manage change. That'll help you plan. That'll help you have the conversation with your businesses on what's happening, when things are changing, and how innovation is coming to you. That's one, the public roadmap. The second is whenever we roll out a feature, we blog about it. And that URL is blogs.office.com. Now, that doesn't mean it rolls up. That doesn't mean it rolls out in your tenant right away. What it means is we've started rolling it out in the data centers, and at some point you'll get it as well. And we're trying to get more sophisticated on how we can do targeted communication, but these are really great broad communication vehicles you should be aware of. Here's a screenshot. It's a really nice site. I'm biased, of course, but it's responsive, works on your mobile phone. It gives you as much transparency as possible, and it actually categorizes it in terms of what's going to come, what's launched, and what's recently released. It has pointers to information, so you can read more about what that means for your environment. All right, one slide away from demos. So the next 45 minutes, I'm going to show you a bunch of demos. And I'm going to start with end user experience. And end user experience is very important because at the end of the day, everyone here, whether you're an IT leader or business leader, you're into technology or rolling out technology to make your business productive. And some of the tenets from a 365 perspective are the following. The first is we will build great cross-platform experiences. In the last 12 months, we've shipped Office for iPad, Office for iOS, Office for Android, Office for Android phone, Office for iPhones. We just shipped Office for Windows 10. We are shipping applications on every single major platform. And if you haven't played with it, how many people have played with one of these on any of these platforms? They're absolutely beautiful experiences. And they're built in a way that's mobile, they're built in a way that's native, and it's intuitive, and it's absolutely wonderful. And the way we do this is we're taking a universal development approach, which means we're able to innovate across platform, and at the same time make sure we're taking advantage of the unique mobile gestures and the UI constructs. And it's not just core Office. OneDrive. I don't know how many people saw, but we just shipped OneDrive for Mac. It's in preview, but it's available. That just shipped a few days ago. OneDrive for iOS just shipped and was updated just a few days ago. So we are constantly shipping these apps across all the platforms. And in fact, what's funny, again, coming back to how the world changes quickly, is everyone's like, hey, Arpan, 3 years ago, Arpan, are you guys really going to ship on iOS and Android? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Now, whenever we ship something, they ask me, but Arpan, can't you ship it on Windows first, right? So the conversation is fascinating, and I always say one thing. We're committed to shipping cross-platform. It'll come on all the platforms. They may come differently, but the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to hold innovation back so we can ship on all the platforms at the same time. We want to make sure we get innovation out as soon as possible for all of you with great communication. The second point, and this will give a little bit of insight into why the cloud can be great in many ways, which is this notion of pervasive innovation. And one of my first demos hopefully will be a blast from the past for many of you. And what I mean by pervasive is the world of workloads has changed. Office 365 started with hosted SharePoint, hosted Exchange, hosted Link. That's how it started. Now we don't talk about it that way. We talk about it as Office 365 as productivity experiences that span those workloads. Because at the end of the day, when you're collaborating, it's not just files, it's email. When you're yamming or when you're tweeting or doing whatever, whenever you're engaging in social activities, it's not just that. It has to do with the file. Whenever you're having a conversation, it's not just link. You might have a conversation about a document. So the notion of siloed workloads has changed, and because all of this is managed in the cloud, we're able to innovate across those workload boundaries. Last point, and then demo, the last thing is powerful insights. Powerful insights means a couple things. One is we have powerful insights to respond in a very responsible and productive way, but we're also trying to give you access to that data. And Delve is just one example of that, and we're going to do more and more of that. So with that, let me jump into demo. All right. So how many people here are familiar with SharePoint 2007? Raise your hand. All right. Okay. There was a feature in SharePoint 2007 that I loved. Or was it SharePoint 2003? Okay, I'm not sure. It's been a long time. But I think it was 2007. There was a feature that I absolutely loved. I thought it would change the way people work. I was ecstatic. I would demo it everywhere. And for those of you who remember, it's the feature that basically allows you to attach a file. Then it would create a SharePoint workspace. Do you guys remember this? Raise your hand if you remember this. And it was a beautiful demo. I'm using the word demo because the reality is that very few customers actually set that up because it required a certain version of SharePoint, required a certain version of Exchange, required configuration, and then it needed a little bit more work. But boy, was that idea beautiful, right? Like files, you email it, everything works out beautifully. So let me show you what we've done. But before I do, you guys are a SharePoint crowd. Let me ask you, what's the most popular document management system in the entire world? The most popular. Scream it out. Email. It's email. I love SharePoint, and I wish it was SharePoint, but it's email. It's email. What's the most popular revision tracking feature in the world? I heard it's file name. It's not Word. Okay, you guys know this. Usually people say file stores and people usually say word tracking. It's file name changes. I call it the V1, V2, V3, V4. Have you ever turned on revision history and wondered why do people still do V1, V2, V3? Yeah? Oh boy, it drives me bonkers. And let me tell you, so let me ask one more. There's a big room, but I'll ask it anyway. Why is email the most popular system in the world? It's not because it's easy. It's not because it's accessible. It's a lot more fundamental. It's familiar. People have been doing it forever. And it's cross-device, and it's easy, but it's familiar. It's what we do. It's what we've been doing. So it's the way we've been programmed. And we're human beings. We get programmed, right? So now that's not for every generation because I have nephews and nieces who are on WhatsApp all the time. Like emailing them is impossible, but that's a different story. So, but in corporate America, it's email. So let me show you a feature that we worked on. And this is an example of a small feature that I think has huge impact. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and create an email. And I'm going to do what everyone in the world does, but we people in the SharePoint community do not like. Oh, thank you. I'm going to show you a demo of something that everyone, our resolution's okay. I'll show you something that none of us like, but it happens, which is someone sends an email and tries to pull the attachment trick, right? It's not a trick, everyone does it. But so let me put cloud slide, and let me show you one of the features we did. Again, look at the power of this. So in Outlook, the insert option, when you choose attachments, it does a couple things. First of all, it shows you your OneDrive. Now, we're able to build this experience because it's all up there in the cloud. It shows you OneDrive as a default location. Now, how many people think people will still use that? Why? Because you have to have your file in OneDrive, right? So this helps because you don't have to go dig up the email link, but we're not there. So the killer feature, and for those of you from SharePoint 2007 will remember this, is the experience of attachments. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach cloud service. And the first option, and if I had it my way, I'd remove the second option. But I was told I couldn't. And I was told I couldn't by the same people who said you have to make it easier, which is the conundrum you'll see. People want something, want the other thing too. So we have both options there, but I voted that the first option has to be the first one, which is upload and share with OneDrive. So what's happening over here, and apologies, the resolution's not perfect. What's happening is what you'd want, and what you're probably all dying to see, which is in the background. This is putting the file up in my OneDrive. It's provisioning the right permissions, and all my compliance rules, revision history, all of that works. And what happens when Garth forwards my email to someone else? What happens? Anyone? They can't access it. So what ends up happening is the SharePoint machine takes over. So someone clicks on it, and then I get a request that says, hey, this person wants access. Are you willing to give access to this person? And then I can say yes. So everything is logged in SharePoint, and I have complete control. So there you go. I'm going to send the email out. And there you have it. Now, just to show you that this isn't a demo, I'm going to jump to my OneDrive. By the way, if you haven't noticed, we've actually changed our navigation where you can pin icons to the top nav, which is a really nice small feature. You can also do theming. And we also have an app launcher where you can pin different third-party apps, and I'll talk about that as well. I'm in my OneDrive. I jump into my email attachments, and there you have it. About a minute ago, Garth has access, and everyone here in SharePoint is probably thinking, oh, wow. By the way, you're allowed to clap if that was exciting. So this is an example of a small innovation that actually works cross-boundary. The information worker doesn't know it's email or SharePoint or blah, blah. It's just collaboration to them. And we're able to do this because we're in the cloud. Now, if we ship this on-prem, you'd have to have a certain version of Exchange, SharePoint, do the linking, and you see where I'm going. Like, some of this just becomes naturally easier because you have one version, one stack. So this is just a small example of what I wanted to show you that's available today out there. Right? Does anyone remember the code name for Delve? Oslo. Good. Great. Yeah, the code name is Oslo. And this was actually built and imagined by many members of the FAST team, so part of the SharePoint team. And Delve is a beautiful way of changing the way we find things. So when you think about search, it's a very linear thing. You have to know the keywords you do, then you got to go find it. But Delve helps you find things. Now, if you've been in the SharePoint community for a while, you've heard of something called Knowledge Network. Probably shaking your head, yep, I've heard it. And this is reimagined Knowledge Network, and it's taking advantage of basically big data or this Office graph underneath, which allows it to build this beautiful experience that allows people to discover. And it's fascinating because when I showed this feature with a CIO audience, the CIO and his staff, the business leaders get really excited. The security guys are just waiting to ask me 100 questions. And that's one of the reasons why we added that thing at the top, which is we are not making anything available that isn't available based on SharePoint security. And we found, and we heard feedback, we found that that wasn't good enough. Some people, very strict companies, wanted even more control. So now we actually allow people to turn it off at an org level, and we also have end user control. So if a user wants to turn it off, they can turn it on or off. So again, it's a good example of things we're able to do because we're in the cloud and we're able to listen to feedback. But it's also a good example of how you can do innovation, but also people are a little scared, right? Change is scary. Now, Delve, we've actually been updating it. I don't know if people have been watching or observing. First, you can give feedback if you have feedback. Second is the ability to add boards. So if something really interesting is happening, you can create a public board and people can follow it. And then the other feature I wanted to show that shipped a while ago, but I don't know if a lot of people are aware, is something called document conversations. So in any document that's available out there, you're able to have a conversation that's tied to the document where it's powered by Yammer. So you can see Yammer right here. I'm not logged in, but if I were logged in, I could have a conversation about the document and we get tied to the document. Again, pervasive. It's not about these siloed workloads, it's about this pervasive experience. All right, another great example of innovation, video. How many people have tried to store videos in SharePoint? Okay, you've heard me, I use the word tried. SharePoint is absolutely fantastic for documents, but it's not always great for streaming. So one of the features that we've developed, and it's part of the E-suites, is a feature called Office 365 Video. And on the back end, it's actually powered by Azure Media Services, which knows how to stream. But the front end is all SharePoint. And I have some demo content. I'm not going to go ahead and play a video, but you'll find that the video is smooth. It's fantastic. You just buy storage. You just buy SharePoint storage, and then you can use that for video storage. So absolutely fantastic value. And another example of a place where we've heard feedback, and we responded. Let's see. One more demo on this topic. Okay, so over here I have an Android device. Couple things. When I showed the example of attaching the document and it getting automatically uploaded into OneDrive, the fact that it's in OneDrive now, I can take those documents with me on all my devices, and that means OneDrive. And we've been shipping updated apps for OneDrive on all the major OSs, and I just wanted to show you the direction we're going in, which is the notion of having one OneDrive experience from an end user perspective for a user. Because if I'm a user, I work and I do stuff at home. Instead of having two different apps, we're really trying to unify the end user experience. So I can take a look at my personal experience, which is what you see here, or you see part of it here. I think it's clipped a little bit, but you'll have to take my word for it. The documents is there. And actually, let me rotate this to see if that makes it better. Okay, a little bit better? Maybe. Okay, and you can see that if I've logged into an org ID, I also get my OneDrive for Business account as well. So when I click on Files here, did you guys just see that 0 moved to 1? That was pretty quick. But right here, I have that same exact cloud service file that I just attached in attachments. So the beautiful thing about this experience, and this is starting to show up on iOS and Windows as well, is it's one application for your work and your home. Now, if many of you are thinking, well, what does that mean from a compliance perspective? Hold that thought, because I'll talk about some of the stuff we're doing in mobile app management. All right. All right, so let's move to IT control. So some screenshots, again, for you guys to take home. OneDrive for Business for iOS devices we just shipped, so that's available. The OneDrive for Business Mac sync client is available in preview. So again, these are things that you may or may not be aware of. And let's jump to IT control. I talked a little bit about this in my introduction, which is when you think about control, there are many different aspects. And the way I like to think about it is data at rest, IT controls, if you will, or customer controls, and then the last is device management. So data at rest is basically what is Microsoft doing to secure my data. And I can tell you that I spend at least 20 to 30% of my team's time on things like data center security, compliance, transparency, things we're making at a Microsoft level to make you comfortable, to make you feel very confident about where your data lives. And that itself could be a 1-hour talk, but I won't be focusing on that today, but that is a big, big core focus of Microsoft. So all the abilities, reliability, security, transparency, I just chose one ability, but reliability, so on and so forth. The second, where we are very, very differentiated, is control we give you. The other feature that I loved in the mid-2000s that I unfortunately didn't see a lot of people use is RMS. How many people use RMS today? Okay. How many people know of RMS? A lot. Well, a few. RMS is a service. It's called Rights Management Service, which basically allows you to keep a policy with a document. There's a feature in SharePoint that allows you to do an RMS or IRM policy, which is actually a great feature. The problem is that it's not that easy to set up RMS. It takes work. But again, if you're in the cloud, we're able to set that up for you very, very easily. So your feature to value equation changes significantly. So RMS is an example. DLP, how many people use DLP in their organizations? What does DLP stand for? Data loss prevention. Data loss prevention, one of the things we're doing, and we've started doing this, is instead of just looking at DLP for Exchange and DLP for SharePoint, we're looking at DLP across all content. Because content isn't just documents. It's just not mail. It's anything digital. So you're going to see those innovations starting to light up in Office 365. And some of that has already started rolling out, actually. And the last one is MDM, which is how do I manage or how do I protect data that goes on devices? So let me show you a demo. And this is not shipped. This is coming. OK, so here I have an iPad. And on my iPad, I have a lot of great applications. OA is one of them. So the first thing you'll see is you can actually have a managed pin. And there's app level security here. And I'm in OA. And like any information worker, I like to read mail on the go. And I have an attachment. So let's go ahead and find that attachment. I'm going to go to the right folder here. And I have an attachment here that has financial data, right? So let's open this. I see it in this very unattractive view. This is the native viewer. As many people here know, we actually have native apps. So a much, much nicer view. Again, you can have a pin to block all your apps as part of our MDM value prop. And here's my financial Excel spreadsheet. Now, if I'm in IT, I'm scared, right? I mean, this file can get leaked. It can get saved somewhere. Information can be misused. And in the day of social media, I mean, anything is possible. So let's take a typical scenario. I'm going to go ahead and copy something. And I'm going to copy our earnings because, again, I just got this email, and I think earnings report is done. It was at 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock, but it was Pacific time, not East Coast. So I didn't know, but I'm like, hey, they emailed it to us, so it must be public. And I'm going to go into my Twitter account, and I'm going to go ahead and try to paste it, okay? Isn't this like your worst nightmare, right? Like files floating around, tweeting. You're going to see that there's no paste option. So one of the things that we've done, and one of the things we're shipping, is basically an ability for Intune to manage devices, and not just data and applications, but very smart things. So for example, I can't paste sensitive information into a different application. I just can't do it. The policy prevents me from doing it. There's a walled garden. But I may actually want to use this information in a Word document. So let's go to Word. Again. So I already have it here. Let me paste it again. So if I try to paste this, you'll see paste is available here. So we have sophisticated controls that allow you to dictate how content moves between apps and what apps are allowed. And now that confidential information has been pasted into this Word document, the policy won't let me save this Word document to OneDrive. I can only save it to OneDrive for business. So these are the type of controls that we're shipping, and we're making them available to you, so that way you can balance the empowerment of people and balance control, and do it in a way that's seamless. And of course, everything you'd expect will have the like wipe out data if someone leaves and all that other stuff. But I wanted to show some more subtle features that will be available. Isn't that great? Yeah. Okay. Again, hasn't shipped. You're seeing something in the future, but not that far into the future. It'll ship in, some of this will start shipping in the next couple months, so pretty quickly. Okay, one more demo on this topic. That is the case where someone wants to forward the email to someone. So let's go ahead and take that same example. Okay, this isn't good. All right, I'm not going to do this right now. But clearly the features work, and my memory doesn't. So that was a very simple demo. Basically, I took the same email and showed how a DLP policy applies. So not rocket science, that's available today. But DLP also helps you protect information before, from getting floated around through email. And the reason why I brought up RMS before, and this was not something I was going to demo, but something I'll talk about, is in the DLP policies, you have control to say, look, if an email comes from Heather Newman, who I think is right there, if an email comes from Heather Newman, apply an RMS policy. So you're able to do that at a transport level, which gives you a lot of control. So again, you have a lot of controls on the apps at the transport level and across the board. Let me jump back to PowerPoint. Here's DLP in SharePoint and OneDrive. This is already available as of a few months ago. We're going to keep rolling out more and more features. RMS, I talked about this. One of the pieces of feedback we had was, hey, look, RMS is great, but it's not working with my OneDrive sync. So we took that feedback, and we've addressed that. And now I'm going to jump into developer, my last part of the topic. How many people have written an app at some point in their lives? Great, a few people. How many people have installed an app? Good, I'm just checking if you're awake or not. Okay, we've all installed apps. And in our team, we are fundamentally thinking on how to make it really simple for developers to create apps, but also make it really safe for people to install apps. And with the cloud, we've evolved our model, and this has been in effect for the last few years. And we're going to continue investing in this model. And some of the core principles around what we're trying to do are the following. The first is we want every app to be able to extend Office experiences everywhere. So if you develop an app for Outlook, we want that app to work in the desktop client, in the browser, in the iPad client, in the Android client, everywhere. Because if you're using Outlook, you're using Outlook, and that app should live everywhere. That doesn't work with COM add-ins. COM add-ins don't work everywhere. The second principle, and I'm going to show you a demo. I'm going to show you some demos of that, which are really, really powerful. The second principle is more and more, there are line of business applications and other third-party applications that want to tap into Office 365. So we're making the APIs open and restful. So a good example of something that we're doing is we're partnering with IFT, which is an internet service. How many people familiar with IFT? Yeah, a lot of, yeah. Check it out, very, very cool. You can set up your notifications. You can use it for pretty much anything for alerting. It's a simple workflow engine. And we're opening up APIs to companies like that to be able to tap into Office 365 data and applications so they can do super innovative things. We have hundreds of petabytes of data, and we're making it available in a very secure way. And that's all ISVs, internet providers, ISVs. I think I saw Nintex here. There are a lot of ISVs here, and I just made the mistake of saying one ISV. I'm sorry, it's every ISV out here. And everyone is using these APIs. And we're going to keep innovating. We're going to keep expanding the API footprint. And there are a lot of the ISVs here as well. So I'm sure they're at expo halls and you're able to meet them. So I recommend checking them out. They're building some great, great, great solutions. The second one is one that's resonating with a lot of mobile developers, which is we are bringing tools to where mobile developers are. So raise your hand if your company is doing cross-platform development. I said company, maybe not your team, but you have someone looking at doing a little bit of Android development, iOS development, Windows development, yeah? Probably everyone. At some level, someone somewhere is looking at cross-platform strategy and development. And what we're trying to do to reduce friction for developers is we're bringing tools and SDKs to them. So we've actually gone ahead and on GitHub, we've published open source SDKs for Android and iOS. So if you're an iOS developer or an Android developer, you could develop in Swift. You could develop in Java. You could develop in all the languages that you're used to with these native SDKs. Okay, and there are a bunch of sessions here, so I recommend checking them out. But let me do some demos. All righty. So the first demo I want to show is a simple one, which is Outlook apps over here. Yeah, sorry about that. Almost everyone here at some point in their lives have installed an Outlook COM add-in. Positive, I'm sure they have. Those add-ins, like I said, won't work cross-platform. So now I'm on a browser, and I'm going to show you an example of what we can do and what we're seeing partners starting to build, which is if you build an app using the new app model, it'll work cross-platform. So in this particular example, I have an email. And as we discussed before, a lot of people live in email. And there's an address there. And there's also a gesture about meeting someone at some time. So the app that's installed out of the box native is a Bing Map app. And the Bing Map app renders whenever there's a regular expression that shows an address. And if you're a developer or even if you're in IT, you can configure your own regular expressions and triggers and have an application show up. And this application is just HTML5. It's really, really simple. And the examples, I showed the Bing Map app, oh boy, wrong app, to talk through. The reason why I show this is because of what you can imagine. So when I'm talking to CIOs, the scenario I talk about is imagine you have a customer record and then you want your employees to see customer data right within email. This allows you to do that. That is very different from go here, sign in, go look for it, because I guarantee you adoption of that will be 1% to 2%. You have to make it simple. You have to make it contextual, and we're giving you a platform to be able to do that. There are a lot of apps in the Office store that do these type of things, but as the SharePoint community knows, not everything we want to put in the Office store, because a lot of them are enterprise apps. So we're also enabling you in the SharePoint, if you go to one of the SharePoint features, basically a catalog, and you can have a curated catalog that has enterprise apps that people can install, manage, secure. Let me show you one more demo. Let me show you a couple more demos on apps. The other piece of feedback I've received is as people move to Office 365, a lot of people live in the interface. So the feedback I received was, hey, Arpan, I want a way to extend the Office 365 navigation. So whether you're a partner or whether you're a customer, that real estate's important. And the app launcher that we released or are rolling out, and I believe it's rolled out almost entirely, is the new Start menu. And we've just recently opened up the ability for a third-party app to be part of that Start menu. So here's a partner called I-Learned. They have a free application. So when I click on this, what they've done is they've done single sign-on, and they have some end-user training. It's all free, and you could check it out. So let's see. Let's pick Yammer. Let's check posts, and they just do. I think a lot of their stuff is video training, and it's just it's a simple URL. It's i-learn.com, free app. And you could check it out. You could try it out if you want. Let me move back here. I'm just switching gears a little bit because it reminded me of one thing I wanted to show. How many people here are IT admins? Okay, great. One feature I forgot to show, but I do want to show now, is in the IT admin section, one of the ways we're communicating is through a feature called Message Center. Message Center is a feature in every single Office 365 tenant, and that's where we're publishing information about change. Some of it may require you to do action. Some of it may require you to do nothing, so it's more of a notification. But this allows us to have a targeted communication challenge to all of you so you know what we're doing and how you can continue managing your environment. A feature we released, I would say, about 18 months ago, and we're constantly improving, and we're constantly improving our mobile apps as well. So for example, the admin mobile app will actually have a swipe that gives you the Message Center in the next month or so. Alrighty, my last demo of the day. I love this demo. Okay, so remember one of the things I said is these are contextual applications that live in all of Office. So a really nice example is a company in the Bay Area that has this really simple idea, and there are many other companies that do this, but this is just a really nice example of contextual applications. What they do is they have a polling application. So let's do poll. And they have an app, and the app, again, this is all part of the out-of-the-box experience. You can insert an app from the ribbon. And in this particular case, this is also free. Some level is free. There's an application that actually gets embedded here. It's actually just HTML5. And this will work in PowerPoint online as well. And it walks me through a wizard. So let's go ahead and create a poll for this audience. Multiple choice. Give me a good question, and please don't make it about football, because I'm still hurting. So any question? Let's do something innocuous. Favorite city? Favorite city you like to visit? Okay. Names. Where are people from? Of course, Austin. New York, I heard. Let's do New Orleans. We already have Austin as a... Green Bay, I could do. Boston, maybe not. Let's do Seattle as a city. All right, so let's stick with 4. And I insert the poll. Take out your cell phones, please. This is the one time in a keynote they'll tell you to take out the cell phones. All right, bring it out. And you have a couple ways to interact with this poll. The first is you can text to 22333 A, B, C, or D. Text works. If Wi-Fi or 3G is not working, if that's working, you can also use that URL. And then just go ahead and respond. Has anyone voted yet? There you go. Okay. Great. So this demo is a great way to tell a story and interact. And let me tell you a personal story. Every time I do this demo with senior CXOs, they get really excited because we're showing PowerPoint, which is awesome. And then the second thing they get really excited is about the question. So the conversation starts becoming, oh, really? That city? That's it? Like, I usually do an app. I usually do, what's your favorite app? And I'll do Outlook, Word, OneNote, Excel. And then the results spurs a conversation for 5 minutes, which is fascinating. And then the CXO looks and says, I want that. So this is just a really nice example of what's possible with the new app model, and you could do this with COM add-ins as well. But the beauty of this app is now it'll work cross-platform. And clearly, Austin's the best city, which makes total sense, by the way. Unless you're not from Austin, in which case I feel for you. All right, I have 2 minutes. And with that, I just have a couple slides. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about hybrid. Because at the end of the day, I started with saying Office 365 is something that we're focused on, that I focus on specifically. But the next sentence I'm about to say is really important. One of the things that we've shifted is 3 years ago, I would have come up here and said, Microsoft's committed to bringing our customers to the cloud, and I'm changing the way I talk about it. We are committed to bringing the cloud to you. And it's a very subtle but very, very important way of thinking, which is we know that each company will move differently. And I was having a conversation with Robert Bogan and a few others just before this, that a lot of the move to the cloud, it's political, it's geopolitical, it's security standards, it's your chief security officer, it's a lot of different things that not everyone in this room can control. And that's okay. It'll take time. And that, I do believe fundamentally more and more will happen in the cloud, but we also want to make sure we're able to bring you value that we're building and all this innovation to you. So one of the commitments you're hearing from me is that we will continue investing a lot of great innovation and how we can bring that innovation to you on premises. So we've started talking about this conversation on blogs@office.com, but think, how can we bring OneDrive to on-prem? Because I always tell people a great hybrid deployment is one where the end user doesn't know it's hybrid. So I'm not going to bore you guys with single sign-on, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't, like, that's all technical detail. But the bottom line is a great hybrid deployment is one where your end users don't know it's hybrid. And we want to help you enable that. So imagine SharePoint on-prem, people seamlessly working with OneDrive is one example. Another is Delve. Delve being able to expose and take advantage of corporate data would be another example. Hybrid applications and navigation. Having that app launcher click to an application that's on-prem. So these are just examples of things we're thinking about to help data and applications live cross-cloud and cross-on-prem. And everyone's going to be somewhere in the middle. And it just depends on where you are and depends on how you want to plan to get where you want to get based on all the factors that you're thinking through. And the last slide will be more of a practical slide. Again, these slides are all for you. These are some of the things that I see a lot of our SharePoint customers take a look at as they think about hybrid, as they think about cloud. These are some of the things that you can also think about. Some people go all in. I typically find that line of business portals are the hardest thing to move for a lot of reasons. You have content sensitivity, where you need a lot of people to sign off on. You also have a lot of connections that you need internally. So those come later, typically on the migration side. But these are some of the low-hanging fruits that you can start planning that coexist or live in a hybrid world with on-prem. So with that, I am exactly at 11:02. See, exactly at 11:02. And I really do want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for all your support. I want to thank you for all your feedback with the SharePoint community. I've been on the SharePoint journey for, ever since I left Austin. And now I'm here. So thank you for all your support. I'm going to be around for the next hour or two. So if you have a question, come grab me. I don't know if, David, can we take questions or we're out of time? We're out of time, but I'll be up here. So feel free to come up here. Thank you.